What's going on, my dear friends? Today in this video, let's learn and master the Angular framework's latest version. So let's get started. Alright guys, so in the previous lecture, we learned how to deal with the empty value. For this, we use the ng4 approach. So in this lecture, let's see this in the new approach. So guys, there is not much. Let's do this. So first we have to get the array length. So how do we get that? Same as the previous, in here also we cannot use this count variable because the same reason. If this array is empty, this for loop won't execute. So in here also we have to use the array length approach. So now before this for loop syntax, create an if loop syntax. So how do we do that? Add symbol and the if directive. After this, parentheses and the directive scope. Now let's add the condition. So users obj, which is our users array. After this, dot length. Next, add the equals operator, which is this two equal signs. Now assign the value, which is number 0. Next, inside the scope, add the message. So create a p tag and the message is the same as the previous. So copy and paste that here. Now after this, add this to this message loaded using syntax. That's all. So save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this loaded the no user data message coming from syntax. Right? So we successfully loaded the message when there is no users to fetch. Perfect, right? Before we move on, we have something new, another approach to display this empty value message in this for loop syntax. So this is coming with this new for syntax approach. So we have another new separate block for this, which is empty syntax block. So let's see this in action. It's very easy compared to the previous approach. Just simply open an empty directive block after this for syntax block. Same as other syntax templates. First, add the add symbol. After this, the directive name empty. For this, there is no parentheses. Just simply add the curly brackets. Just simply add the directive scope with curly brackets. Alright, so now this time let's pass the empty array message inside this block. So let's simply copy and paste it from the previous. Change it to loaded from empty syntax block. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, we got this message which is loaded using the new empty syntax block. If I add a new user, as you guys can see here, this removes the message from the DOM and render the new user values. So this empty block also do the same thing but in a different way. So when this for loop trying to execute this loop, if this looping array is empty, this will stop executing this and move on to this empty block and render this value inside the DOM. Something similar like the if else block, right? So this is one of the new features coming with the new Angular syntax approach. So with this empty block, we can simply do this empty message without writing any conditions or logics. Awesome, right? So guys, this is how we deal with the new empty syntax block. Alright guys, so we almost completed all the features in for loop. So in this lecture, we'll quickly go through some of other properties coming with the ng4 and the for loop syntax block. So these are not that much important, but it can be sometimes helpful when you're dealing with the real world application. So let's look at the first and last properties. So guys, simply this will return a boolean value whether the current item is the first or the last item in the list. This can be useful for applying special styles of behavior to the first or last item in a list. So let's see this in action. So guys, I will do this example in the new for loop syntax. So these all valid in the previous ng4 directives as well. So let's look at the first property. So inside this for syntax loop, let's add this first property. Nothing much here, same as the previous index and this count properties. So after this count property, add the semicolon. Next, create a variable for this. Let first assign the property is $sign and the property is first. So guys, in the new syntax approach, always remember all the properties are coming with the $sign, right? If you want to use this with the ng for all directives, then we don't need to use the $symbol, right? Alright, so guys, this first property will return true if the current array item is the first one in the list. Otherwise, it will return false. So let's load this inside the browser view so we can see this clearly. So before this, add another string interpolation and add this first variable. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, in front of all the users, we got these Boolean values. For the first value, we got true Boolean value and all other values are false. So basically, this is what this first for loop directive will do. So using this Boolean value, we can add a dynamic style or we can work on something, conditional rendering and so on. So you guys will get used to this when dealing with real world applications. Alright, so next we have the last property. So guys, this is same opposite of the previous first property. So this will return a Boolean value when the current item is the last item in the list. Okay, so let's see this in action. So again, create another variable. After this, the variable this time set as last and assign this to the last property. So this also coming with the $sign, right? So in order to see this inside the browser view, so let's pass this inside the string interpolation. So inside this previous string interpolation, replace this first to last variable. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this loaded the Boolean value. Unlike previous, this time this returned true Boolean value on the last item on the list. If I add another user, as you guys can see here, this changed and this last value only returning a true Boolean value. So this is what we can do with the last property. So hope you guys got the idea. Alright, so let's quickly move on to the next even and odd for loop directive properties. So what is this even and odd properties? So you can find the answer simply with these property names. So these even and odd return a Boolean value when the current item is the even or the odd item in the list. If the item is even, this even property will return true, otherwise this will return false. So in other hand, this odd property will return true if the item is odd and otherwise false. Very simple, right? So let's look at this in action so we can understand this clearly. So first, let's look at the even property. So as usual, create a variable, let even. After this, assign this to the $sign even property. Next, replace the string interpolation value to even, which is this even property variable. Alright, so save this all and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time we got true Boolean value front of these even array indexes. Awesome, right? Alright, so next let's look at the odd property. So after this, again create a variable for this let odd and assign this to the $sign odd property. Next, replace this even to odd. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. We got this true value front of the odd items. Perfect. So guys, that's it for these properties. These are just simple properties that are bundled with Angular 4 directive. So hope you guys got the idea. Alright guys, this is the end of the ng4 and the new for loop syntax directive. So let's move on to the next chapter, which is our last structural directive, which is ng switch case and the new syntax ng switch. Alright, so guys, in this lecture, let's look at the last structural directive in the list, ng switch case directive. For this also, we have the old ways and the new syntax approach in Angular. So first look at the old way and we'll move on to the new syntax approach. So guys, when we learning if directive, we use this example to load a message inside the view based on the user's role. If the user is admin, we loaded the welcome admin message. If the user is a member, we loaded the welcome member message, and so on. So guys, for this we used the else condition and again another if conditions and so on. So for this, we have an easy and clean approach, which is we can simply do this using the ng switch case directive. So let's see this in action. Before that, I will comment all the previous codes inside the HTML files and inside the TS files as well. So we'll do this from scratch. Next, first thing first, we need a variable to store the user's role. So add that here inside the app component TS file. Set the variable name as user's role and this R is capital. After this, type will be string and set a default value something. Admin, pass this inside quotes. Alright, so next inside the HTML file, let's define the ng switch case directive. Wait, first let's define the HTML code, then we'll work on the directive. So first create a div and inside this add a p tag. Inside this p tag add the message welcome admin. So next copy and paste this p tag again and change the message as welcome member. So guys, when the user is admin, I want to show this admin message. If the user is a member, I want to show this member message. That's it. So guys, now let's work on the logic. When we're dealing with this switch directive, we have to follow two steps. First, we have to define the switch. Then we have to define the cases, right? So, alright. So first we have to define the switch. So let's do this. Inside this div, add this ng switch directive. And guys, we have to define this as a property binding. So wrap this inside of square brackets. Next equal sign. Inside quotes, pass the user role variable. So guys, this is how we define the switch. With this, we are telling Angular to evaluate the user role variable and switch based on its values. So as you guys can see here, we are getting this warning cause as usual, like other ng directives, we have to import this ng switch directive as well. So go to the app component TS file and add this inside this imports array. So the directive is ng switch. Select this autocomplete. This will add the import statement. As you guys can see here, this is also coming with the common Angular module. Alright, so next we have to define the case for these messages. So inside this p tag, add this ng switch case. So carefully follow these capital simple letters. So guys, unlike this ng switch, we have to define this as a directive with a asterisk symbol. After this, equal sign and add double quotes. So guys, in here we have to define the case. So we want to show this message when the user role set as admin. So this case is admin. Now we have to pass this as a string value. So inside these double quotes, again add another single quote. Inside this, pass the admin. So guys, this is the case. So simply we are telling Angular to display this message when the user role set as admin. So in here also we are getting this warning. In order to solve this, we have to import this ng switch case directive as well. So go to the app component TS file and add this import statement. This time the directive is ng switch case. Select this autocomplete. That's it. So we successfully completed the two steps. First we define the switch and second we define the cases. With this, we are simply telling Angular to evaluate the user role variable and display the corresponding message based on its value. If the user role is admin, it will show this welcome admin message, right? So save this and go to the browser. In here, we got this welcome admin message. So how this loaded here? Because guys, by default, we set this user role value as admin. So in this case, this ng switch case will return true. So this will display this message. But guys, if you notice this carefully, we got this welcome member also printed here. Why is that? Because guys, we define this ng switch case only for the first admin message, this p tag. So for this member message, we didn't add any condition logic. So that's why this loaded inside the browser. Even this is inside this ng switch div, right? So in order to fix this, we have to add the ng switch case directive to this p tag as well. So same like previous, asterisk symbol, and the directive is ng switch case. After this, the case is this time we have to show this message when the user role is a member. So pass this inside of quotes. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time we got only this welcome admin message. So if we change this user role value as member, save this and go to the browser. So this time we got the welcome member message. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright guys, before we move on to the next, what I want to do is I want to add another user role case. Something for user role, something editor. How do you do that? Very simple. Just all we have to do is simply add another case inside this ng switch, right? So down here again create another p tag and set the p tag value as welcome editor. Next we have to define the case same as previous. First add the directive ng switch case followed by the asterisk symbol. Next the case is I want to show this message when the user role set as editor. So pass this inside double quotes and inside of single quotes. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. Still we got this member message. Why is that? Because this user role value set as member. So change this to editor. Save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this time we got the editor message. So guys, this is how we deal with the ng switch case directive. So in here, first we have to define the switch. Next we have to define the cases. So inside of a switch, we can add as many as cases we want. So hope you guys got the idea. So guys, before the end of this lecture, let's look at another case for this. So imagine that we are building this logic for our application's login page. If admin logged in, we are showing the welcome admin message. If the member logged in, we are showing this welcome member message, right? So think in any case, if there is no users logged into our application, in other words, this user's role variable doesn't have any value assigned to this. In that case, we want to change the message to something else like please login or something, right? So how do we do that? Can you guys guess? For this guys, we can simply use another ng switch case. Let's see this in action. So first let's make this user's role value as an empty string. Next inside this add another p tag and the message is please login. Now in order to show this conditionally, we have to add the ng switch case directive to this p tag. So add that here. This time the case is just an empty string. So pass that here inside of double quotes and add a single quote. Add a empty single quotes. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. We got this please login message, which means this working as we expected. But guys, using these empty string values are not a good practice. For this, we have a better approach in Angular. We have another directive for this, which is ng switch default. So using this, we can use this please login message when the user role not defined. So let's see this in action. Just simply remove this ng switch case directive and add the ng switch default directive. So asterisk symbol and the directive is ng switch default. So follow these capital simple letters carefully. So to this directive, we don't need to pass any checking values, right? So guys, we are getting this warning as usual. In order to prevent this, we have to import this directive as well. So go to the app component ES file and add the import statement inside this import array. The directive is ng switch default. Select this autocomplete. This will add the import statement. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, we got this please login message. So guys, how this loaded? When there is no values assigned to the user's role, this ng switch will go through these cases. If there is no any matching case, by default this will load this ng switch default message inside the browser view. So this will not only work with an empty value. So if I set something user role to apart from these switch cases values, in that case also this will print this default message. So let's change this user's role to something HR. Save this and go to the browser. Still we are getting this please login message. So guys, simply we use this ng switch default directive to display a default message when there is no matching cases. So hope you guys got the idea. Awesome. Alright guys, that's the end of the ng switch case directive. So in the next lecture, let's look at the new switch case syntax approach for this. Perfect.